What is up, everyone? How is it going? Happy Fantasy Friday. Book 2 of the First Law trilogy. I buddy read this with Mark from Slowly Read, and I will link his channel and his video in the comments. And yeah, let's get started. Mark and I were both in kind of a similar position where we had read the first book to this series kind of a while ago, and we both liked it, but I think we were both a little underwhelmed just because of the hype behind this series was so high. It's hard to live up to that hype. But yeah, for this second book, Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie, I think we came in with somewhat lower expectations, but we still had pretty high hopes, I think. Oh yeah, by the way, spoilers for the first book, but not for the second book. My biggest complaint with the first book was that nothing happened. It was very much a character-driven story. A lot of the characters didn't even really have goals. Like Giselle, he was a fencer in the first book, and like halfway through the book, he's like, "Man, I don't really care about fencing," and it's like, oh, why are we doing this? Why are you a character that exists in the book? But yeah, like I said in my review for The Blade itself, the first book, Joe Abercrombie can make a conversation about the weather interesting. So that like really saved the book. The characters were interesting and fun, even if they had no like coherent drive to do something interesting or productive. It was still interesting and fun. This book, it was also fairly slow paced, but I feel like it was faster paced just because the characters were more grouped up. So at the end of the first book, you have Luthar, Logan Nine Fingers, and Farah, all with Baez and Kawhi going on the adventure. And Joe Abercrombie would hop between those three perspectives, but it was all like one story. They were all going to the same place, even if they didn't really necessarily know where they were going. That may have been the story arc I was most interested coming into this book, because like Luthar has never gotten his hands dirty in his life. Even like the fencing tournament where it might be like he would have to earn a win, Baez cheated on his behalf basically and like just maneuvered his body and helped him win. So I was interested to see him get his hands dirty a bit. Logan out in the wild, he used to be like the clan leader. So that's interesting because this is the first time we're really seeing him in like a somewhat large group of people where, out on a quest kind of more in the middle of nowhere. Even though Baez is obviously the one leading the mission and knows where they're going and all that, Logan's like, it's interesting to see how he was such a good leader of the Three Trees and Dogman and all them. I was curious if it was just because he was like the best at fighting or because he was a good leader. And then Farah, we didn't hear much about her in the first book, really, other than kind of a lot of adversity. So learning more about her was interesting and seeing kind of her perspectives and seeing if she could make friends, because she very clearly didn't trust anyone in the first book. And then just seeing what is Baez's mission. All of those things together made me most curious about that plot story arc. Glocta going to the south to try to keep that Dagaska, is that the city that he was in? Yeah, that was interesting because there was a lot of hints at the end of the last book that, the last Inquisitor there was murdered, and, I was definitely expecting a lot of intrigue and stuff. And you guys know me, or if you watch my channel, I'm a pretty big fan of political intrigue. So yeah, I was excited for that as well. And then the Northlands, at the end of the last book, West is going north. Didn't really know what was going to happen in the north. I mean, it sounded like there's armies massing, so it sounded like there could be fighting, which is somewhat exciting. And, West needs a good redemption arc, because at the sort of the last third of the last book, he's definitely set up to need a redemption arc. And then Dogman's point of view, they're also in the north, so them and Wes kind of are like in the basically the same location. And Dogman and their clan seem interesting, and I wanted to know them more in the first book, but there just wasn't really time in the first book, between like all the fencing tournaments and Glocta, torturing and extorting confessions out of a low-level merchant guild person. It was very important that we talk about those things rather than anything else. So being a little snarky, but did anything happen in the first book? All right, but yeah, so that's where we're at. Even though like the plot isn't that interesting, just all me talking about the characters, you could tell that I'm actually fairly interested in all their stories. And that's what made me keep going with the series. Before They Are Hanged definitely did not disappoint. It was definitely better than the first book. It felt like more things happened, which I know, low bar, but it added to the characters. It made characters that were already deep in the first book even more deep and complex. And, sometimes people are contradictory, and but sometimes, writers make like fairly cookie cutter characters that are fairly what you'd expect most of the time, but no one's really like super cookie cutter, and no one's like really like moral or amoral. And that was true in the first book. That's even more true in the second book, I think. I'm definitely going to read the third book just because I have to know how all this ends. It definitely ended in such a way where there's like a clear and obvious cliffhanger. I think part of my issue with what's going on is the characters that are most clearly trying to do things and like make moves on the world stage or whatever. You don't really get their perspective. Like, you don't have Bias's perspective. You don't have like the leader of the Gurkish's perspective, and you don't have Bethod's perspective. That can work, because like when I'm thinking about Game of Thrones, it was kind of like that too. You would get Arya's perspective and Jon Snow's perspective at the start, and none of them really, I mean, they were all just like regular people, or like regular children of the lords at the beginning. So, and I'm not like totally against characters who aren't like the king or whatever, or like the most powerful person. I'm fine following those characters at some point, but it just, I don't know. I just like never know what's going on almost. Like, Bias is talking about, oh, I'm the first of the Magi, and, the Maker and whatever. And like, I just don't know what's going on with all that. As readers, we both don't really know the history well enough of what actually has gone on and what this conflict actually is about. And we don't know like what any of the sides are actually doing for the future of this conflict. We just have vague things like at the end of the first book, they're going to journey to try to get the seed or whatever. What is the seed for? Like, I don't know. So it's just like not quite there, but I still love the book. And I feel like Joe Abercrombie does this intentionally to get, not the leader's views. It's just not, I guess, what I personally would prefer. I would prefer having like Bias's point of view instead of, whoever, Luthar's. Or I would prefer having Bethod's point of view instead of Three Trees. But that's just me. And, it is what it is. I still like the book. I still would probably recommend the book if you like longer books, especially if you like character-driven fantasy stories. But yeah, that's everything. What is the next book? The Last Argument of Kings. I'll definitely be reading that probably in a month or so. So check that out. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and see ya.